decide what is going to work the best for her, given her lifestyle, given her needs, and given her preferences. And that's what we want, and that's what we need to communicate. Next slide, please. So what are the challenges? So we do know a lot about challenges in relation to rolling out oral PrEP, and some of these challenges we anticipate with other PrEP methods as well. So my colleague, Dr. Catherine Martin, who's in the audience, big shout out to her, recently published a paper, and she really talks about what young people have said, what women have said are the challenges in terms of oral PrEP uptake. So we know that for a lot of women in Africa, the reality is that the clinic is just too far from them. They need resources to get to the clinic in terms of time, in terms of energy, in terms of funding. So that is a challenge. Then the perceived vulnerability to HIV. Many women believe that their partner is completely faithful, and so therefore they do not need any HIV prevention. And many of them just feel that there isn't a need to take PrEP, and that's because a lot of the times they feel HIV isn't a real occurrence for them in their lives. And so there's a lot of communication that we need to do around ensuring people are educated and understand what HIV is, how it works, and what impact it can have. And then many young women said to us that they just felt that in terms of oral PrEP, the side effects were too severe. They felt that they can't take a day or 2 days off from school or from university or from work while they're dealing with the side effects. They felt it was just too much. And we have to keep that in mind. And this is a small percentage, but every single percentage matters, right? And again, this is why choice is so important. Then I was telling someone yesterday, my friend Aurelie, that I go out and I speak to young women in the community a lot. It's important to me that I understand what they want, what they need. And young women, this specific young woman in Mthatha said to me, Al, when I have to take my oral PrEP in the morning, I feel like I need to sit down first and I need to meditate a little bit. And that's a reality, not just for one woman, but for many women. I mean, I see a lot of young women in the audience as well. The pill burden, the size of the pill, a lot of them cannot wait to use the ring, cannot wait to try the injection. And then, of course, we know a lot of people feel stigmatized, and some young women have indicated that their partner or their family told them to stop taking PrEP. And so we have to understand, how do we work with these young women so that they can have that empowerment to really make a decision for themselves. So next slide. So that leads me to sort of the next thing, which is, do people really know what PrEP is? Now, the national rollout of oral PrEP in South Africa commenced on 1 June 2016, one of the days of my life. And PrEP in South Africa is marketed through a variety of channels. We've got the internet, we've got Facebook, we've got Instagram, Twitter now, X, we've got WhatsApp, mobile phones, radio, television, IEC materials, in-person communication. And yet, the questions we are asked most often through any of these channels are, what is PrEP? How does PrEP work? Where can I get PrEP? And the difference between PrEP and PEP. During phase 1 of Project PrEP, the project reached more than 88,000 people with in-person communication. So not just digital, but face-to-face as well. Next slide. That's the end of the presentation. Oh, technology. So what I'm going to tell you about a little bit next while our friend here gets the slides ready is just the different digital channels that we use to engage with adolescent girls and young women on a daily basis, and how this tells us what young women really want. Because if we listen to young women, if we actually look at the questions they're asking us, then we can really understand what it is when we need to focus. So this is Sister Renati. Meet Sister Renati. So she's not a real person, full disclaimer. Sister Renati is an artificial intelligence chatbot developed by BITS RHI with the support of Unit 8. So big shout out to Unit 8 for the first PrEP chatbot in South Africa and on African soil. That's massive. So since January 2023, so just this year, Sister Renati has received just over 11,000 questions from just over 6,000 users, and she's had almost 8,000 conversations. Now, 32% of those questions were, where can I get PrEP? What does that tell you about adolescent girls and young women? They are ready for PrEP. They're not waiting for us, they are ready. Then the second question that we get asked most often is, what is PrEP and how does it work? So it's easy, we can explain. And then 7% still ask, how much does PrEP cost? They're worried that it's going to cost them something. So that's something we have to focus on. We have to address that. Next slide, please. So meet Selection Kanye. They're real young women. They are not chatbots. They're from South Africa, and I get to work with them every day. So I'm the lucky one. Since January this year, they chatted with more than 4,000 users on the MyPrEP WhatsApp for Business line. And again, the top 3 questions they answer the most: where can I get PrEP? How does PrEP work? And what is PrEP? Next slide. Then, sorry, went a little bit fast there, one back. So this is Kiki. She's a real person too. She leads all of our social media platforms, and in any given month, the MyPrEP South Africa social media channels reach up to 200,000 users and engages. This is the key one. Reach is easy. Engage more than 15,000 users. And since inception, we have engaged, not reached, actually had a conversation with almost 800,000 people. Next slide. All right, stick with me here. We're going to have to take a lot. So, and yet, the questions we get. Do I get PrEP when I'm sick, or how does PrEP work? Next. How long do I take PrEP for it to work? Next. Where can I get PrEP? That's a schedule that's been shared. Next. I want to know better about PrEP and preventing pregnancy. Next. Again, how can I get PrEP? Next. Can you elaborate for me between PrEP and PEP? Next. At what age can you start taking PrEP? Next. I'm using PrEP, and I enjoy to take it every day since last May. This is a young woman coming to us and saying, hey. Next. And then just MyPrEP with little party smiley faces. Fantastic, right? So again here we can see young women are telling us what they want. People are telling us what they want. And I think in terms of communication and marketing, the hardest thing is to get your audience to talk back to you. It's easy for us to put messages out there. We can do that. But when our audiences start engaging back with us, we get a little bit of goosebumps. That's when we know we're doing something right. Next slide. So MyPrEP South Africa targets AGYW, so adolescent girls and young women specifically, but we do not exclude anyone. We do get messages from community members, we do engage with parents, we do get men asking us questions and asking us to direct them to services as well. We do that. And since 2018, we've reached, engaged, and educated millions of adolescent girls and young women, but more is needed. We are not done yet. Our job is not done. Next slide. So think about your favorite and biggest brand. Just get that picture in your head. For me, I think it's Pepsi. Do they ever stop their marketing efforts? Are they ever satisfied with their current market share? No, they never stop. There's always a new campaign. Next slide. So as one of my colleagues said, Emily Donaldson, behind every effective campaign is a strong brand strategy. that we need to leverage this lesson and approach from the private sector for HIV prevention. We need to start doing that. We need to take a leaf out of the private sector book. We need to up our game. Next slide. So I'm happy to say that South Africa is shifting to a higher gear. Next slide. And that's because increasing knowledge and access requires continued strategy and execution. We can never stop. We can never stop engaging adolescent girls and young women. We can never stop engaging our advocates, our activists, our departments of health. We need to keep going. And so Mosaic is building on and working together with Project PrEP to really look at how do we further our efforts in South Africa and in the region to make PrEP famous, to make it a famous brand. And the demand generation and marketing team are really focusing on high impact activities that can achieve this. And for Mosaic, this means building a strong brand for PrEP with other partners that really guides marketing efforts in a unified and a standard manner so that we know what we're doing is right and it fulfills the needs of our audiences. And so a brand ideally lives in a consumer's heart and soul, and a brand is not what I say about it, it's what our clients say about it. So I can talk about PrEP for as long as I want to, I can be as enthusiastic about it as I want to, but if our clients, our target audience, is not enthusiastic about it, if they don't feel it in their heart and their soul, then I am failing, we are failing. That's what we have to get right. So Mosaic is commenced with the development of a positioning strategy. And at the core of this activity is the need to unpack what we want young women's hearts and minds to feel and think about PrEP as a category of products. Next slide. So this year has been busy. We've engaged with a number of adolescent girls and young women. We set out on a mission to make sure that we co-design with our target audience in mind. And so Mosaic has facilitated 15 validation workshops across 3 countries, reaching 121 young women where they are. We didn't ask them to come to us, we went to where they are. And we really wanted to understand how do they experience life, and then where PrEP fits into their life. And so we learned a lot of things, and I'll give you the quick overviews from a report that's about 120 pages long. But what came up for us, and it was very interesting that young women across all 3 countries said this, is that they see PrEP as self-care. For them, self-care is not bottle baths, it's not foot massages, it's not sitting down with a cup of tea. They take it a lot more serious. For them, PrEP is self-care. They also said that taking PrEP means feeling safe and in control. It gives them a sense of control over their lives. They also highlighted to us that we need to ensure that while we target our communications and specific audiences, we need to make sure that people know that PrEP is for everyone. So very important lesson. Then this one, young women aren't asking for permission. I was sitting in Mombasa in a really hot room, and a young woman stood up and she said, I'm not going to wait around for somebody to tell me that I can take PrEP. I am taking PrEP for me, and I'm taking PrEP for everyone else. If they don't like that, I'll wait till they get on board with me. And that's a fantastic attitude, and something that tells us about the position that PrEP takes in the hearts and minds of young people. Then relationships are the context of adolescent girls and young women's lives, but it is not the emotional connection that they make to PrEP. So young women were very clear to say to us, look, it would be fantastic if my partner or partners supported me in my PrEP journey, but I am not waiting for them to tell me that I can take it, and if they don't like that I'm taking it, that's on them. But I'm going to take PrEP for me. So that was quite significant as well. Then we know, and I think we've known this for a while, that young women and girls are their own source of strength. They've said to us, the world is a hard place. We need to rely on ourselves and on our inner circle. And then we have to keep making PrEP famous, and we have to equip them with substantial PrEP knowledge so that they can put that information out there in the communities as well. Next slide. So the key brand benefit that we got from all of this work, from all of our engagements, that young women has said to us is that PrEP is a way for young women to prioritize their physical health and mental well-being, to live a life uninterrupted by HIV. It affirms that self-love is strength. And that's what we're working from. Next slide, please. So how much progress have we made? Just quickly to let you know where we are in the process. We're trying to do this in an ethical manner to make sure that we do the research, we do it correctly. So market research, positioning strategy complete. Right now we are working with different countries on a creative brief and a campaign plan, and hopefully by next year we can have creative execution, campaign rollout, and also look at M&E. And it's very important for us that when we do this, we actually have young women in the room. So it does look like it's taking us a little bit longer, but that's because we want to make sure we do it right. Next slide. Then just a quick word about the need for multi-channel communications approaches that are flexible yet holistic. It's really important. So if you look at this, you'll also see that this paper was written by me. So this is the first time that I was a first author. Massive anxiety. But what we've done here is we've looked at everything we've done in South Africa, and we know that we can't just do one thing. We need to do several things, and we need to do it in a way that makes sense to the community and to young women. We need to sit down with young women and make sure that what we do is relevant to them. Next slide, please. So this is my second last slide. We just want to talk quickly about monitoring and evaluation, because so often when we're doing demand generation, we do a lot of work and we struggle to measure this. It's really hard, right? So this, what we have on here, is by no means perfect. And I'd love to hear from people if they have better suggestions or even just other suggestions. But just to talk about how we measure in terms of social media, like I said, reach is easy. It depends on which metric you look at your online reach. I mean, we try to be as conservative as possible because we want to learn from what we're measuring. But what works really well for us is that when we look at engagement, we look at how many young women or people talk to us, what are they saying, what are they asking for, are they hating our post, are they loving our post? If they're hating it, why are they hating it? And if they're loving it, can we then replicate that? So really important to not just look at sort of the reach numbers, but be specific, right? If you're trying to target young women in Harare of a certain age, then dive into your metrics and look at how many young women of a specific age are you reaching in a specific area in Harare. Because that's what's going to teach you how to address the gaps or capitalize on positive learnings. Community engagement, probably one of the most important things. And as we know, that members of the community are not a homogeneous group, they are different. And so it's important for us to make sure that we engage with community members, not just once before you start the project, but all the time. They have to know what you're doing. They need to tell you how they feel about what you're doing. Speak to the religious leaders, speak to the tribal councils, speak to the young women, speak to the teachers, the parents, the caregivers, and get them on your side. This is really important. We once realized that in one of our areas in Project PrEP, that mothers were really concerned about the fact that we were giving PrEP to their daughters. They were really, really concerned about it when they saw that it was an ARV. And so we said, this is a fantastic opportunity for community engagement. We got them together and we spoke and we engaged, and finally Mother said to us, well, they feel that if we can come together with their religious leaders and hold a prayer day for PrEP and talk about all of these options where they can have this day with their daughters, then that would be good for them. And that has massively increased our uptake, just because we took the time to actually sit down with community members. Then record conversations and not just numbers. So it's fantastic. Remember when I showed you Sister Renati and I said she had so many conversations? That's great, it's wonderful to present that. But what was said? Because if we listen to what is being said to us, then again, we know how to inform our programming. So numbers are fantastic, but there's little key words and questions that are being asked. That's the real gold. And then finally, evaluation, not just monitoring. So, and this is something where, keep this in mind because you're going to have to budget for it. You don't just sort of want to measure things. You want to make sure that once you've measured your numbers, your engagement, your reach, you can go back to your communities and then have those workshops, those conversations with young women to understand what do those numbers mean. But you will have to budget for that, so keep that in mind. Then my last slide, please. Okay, so give me 2 minutes because I have to thank a lot of people. So to young women in communities, our advocates and activists, for giving their time and energy so generously. We can't do this without you. My boss, Professor Psychomonik, she's my mentor, and she inspires me, and she also gave me the opportunity to come and talk to you here today. So then Hasina Subedar from the National Department of Health. She's visionary, and she's so committed to helping us to become the generation that will end new HIV infection. So always grateful to her. Then my colleagues, you remember Kiki, Kami, and Slesh, for their tireless work. I mean, they respond to so many messages, and they never tire. They just keep going on. Then my colleagues on Mosaic, we're really grateful for them. Unite for their generous support for demand creation and social and behavioral change. We really can't do it without them. You believed in us, you put a vision out there on the table. So thank you very much. And also shout out to thank you.
It's terrific. Je vais juste dire en français qu'on a la traduction. Si vous avez besoin d'un casque, vous pouvez le prendre ici maintenant. Et puis après, Laura vient. So that's for those who might not have had the translation. So terrific presentation. I think we take from that this is a brand and it's ongoing work. You cannot stop. It has to be done. It's about educating everyone and not just the young girl. It's the mothers, the families. Everyone needs to know so that they can be accepted, and I think that's a really strong message, and it's a multi-channel communication. We're now going to move on quickly to a couple of videos, and moving into the next part of our session, which is going to be our panel discussion. But before that, we're just going to play a couple of videos brought to us by MTV Sugar. So,
sound.
We're just waiting for the sound.
For life. You have to shoot him right.
Yeah.
Joker is in film.
I am the fairy PrEP mother. Yes, fairies do exist, but the mission is simple: to help my lovelies have safe sex.
Hey, I said
enough.
It's nice day. Gushushu, it's very
2
warm.
injections a month
Are we
apart,
coming prepared?
and then you come back to us every 8 weeks.
We have something
but I
for a little extra. A pill a day keeps the sexy safe.
But who wants to bring a pill every day?
The stallion that wants to go every
The
day.
one where we take 2 injections a month apart,
Let's go.
and then you come back
You're
to us
welcome.
every 8 weeks.
That's the one I'm looking for, but I can't find it anywhere.
For more information about
Sorry,
PrEP
yeah.
and HIV prevention, check out my girl Sister 090 at
I thought I could choose
myprep.co.
between the injectable, the pills, and the vaginal ring.
The thing is, they're not available in Zanzibar right now. Well, they will be available soon. At least you can still protect yourself from HIV by taking your daily PrEP pills consistently. Then as soon as the vaginal ring and the injection are available, then you can just switch.
Can I get the pills now?
Then we'll need to start with the HIV test.
But I did a self-test like last week.
I understand, but before I can initiate PrEP, I need to take the test myself.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, then we'll start with our way.
Get one quarter.
Next.
I am the fairy PrEP mother. Yes, fairies do exist, but the mission is simple: to help my lovelies have safe sex.
Hi,
Come in, sir.
I came here for PrEP, the injectable one.
It's nice.
It's the one where you take 2 injections a month apart, and then you come back to us every 8 weeks.
That's the one I'm looking for, but I can't find it anywhere. That's why I'm here.
I see you've been doing your homework. And every day, you're living in the future.
What do you mean?
Who wants to bring
I
a
thought I
pill
could choose
every
between the
day?
injectable, the pills, and the vaginal ring.
The thing is, they're not available in Zanzibar right now. Well, they will be available soon. At least you can still protect yourself from HIV by taking your daily PrEP pills consistently. Then as soon as the vaginal ring and the injection are available, then you can just switch.
Can I get the pills now?
Then we'll need to start with the HIV test.
But I did a self-test like last week.
I understand, but before I can initiate PrEP, I need to take the test myself.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, then we'll start with our way.
Get one quarter.
I want you to know we are running late, so I hope you'll bear with us and stay with us to the end of this session. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
I know you're exceedingly loud. Can we turn the volume back up on the microphone? The cook is outside you, Jackson.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me. Okay, thank you for coming in large numbers. As we prepare to get on to the next panel, I will request that the panelists come forward as I do a very quick introduction. Now, we know if we are to end the AIDS epidemic, then we have to prevent infections. There's no doubt whatsoever about that. And hence the reason why we're here, why the whole idea of prevention is really important to us. We also know, those who've worked in treatment programs, that it's very hard to treat adolescents, for example. You know, that's why there was treatment of cancer. So we should be preventing infections after all, and we're in a continent where the population pyramid is heaviest with young adults. Now, we are here because we believe PrEP should scale up. But this is an ecosystem problem. We obviously need to generate the demand, absolutely, and that's what we are listening to here. But we want all partners in this ecosystem to play together. We need you, the advocates, the communities, to drive up demand for these services, communicate clearly. We want there to be a choice. Then we need governments. Now, governments have a problem, a very specific problem. Unlike in treatment programs where it's clear what the treatment is, here we are saying choice. So what happens to governments when they have to plan for choices? How do we as advocates, as people who care about this area of work, communicate and support governments to plan adequately. They also have to think about the financing. They have donors they work with who support those programs. So we really want to better understand how we can work collectively to scale this up. One last constituency that's not up here, that should hear us, dear panelists, are the suppliers, who then say, okay, these are the choices, but we don't understand what the demand is. How can we plan for what we don't know? So the communication here has to go multiple ways. So I'm very pleased that we have a very esteemed panel here to take us through these questions. I will not introduce them. They can choose to say a word or two about who they are because we don't have time. But it's really important that we understand from you what these tools are, how we can communicate. We'll come to the government at some point, but since we're talking about generating demand, let's start with the advocates and hear what they think. What works? What can we do? But also remember that we work in an ecosystem. So communicate to these ecosystems. Over to you, Wame.
Okay, good morning. Can everyone hear me okay? So good morning, my name is Wame Jallo. I'm the Executive Director for MTV Staying Alive Foundation. Sorry, I know there is says MTV Sugar, but it's really great to be here and really just share some of our experiences that we've done on communicating about PrEP. MTV Staying Alive Foundation for the past 5 years has used quite a number of approaches, mixed approaches, from media to communication, engagement, community engagement on the ground as a mix. And the reason why we did that is really to empower young people and equip them, not only with the information, but also the education, the knowledge, and the confidence to be able to make decisions that empower their lives and make informed choice. One of the things that we've done, I thank Marie for sharing a lot about the formats, it's really about dosing the message and making sure that the message is repeated in different formats in different ways. So whether it's social media, whether it's television, as we've seen, public service announcements, it really gives young people the reinforcement of the same messaging in different ways. And that's important for reach, but also for making sure that the consistency in the message that's also shared with young people. You've just seen us launch our fairy godmother, PrEP Mother, which is really quite hilarious and humorous. And that's the other side of it, is like making sure that the messaging is creative, it's fun, it catches people's attention. It doesn't always have to be an article or something in written form as well. The second video actually comes from our Down South season. This was funded by several funders, including Unite. Thank you very much. But there are several storylines that we show about PrEP in different ways. So if you watch our Down South season, you'll see that we talk about PrEP from a young couple's perspective. So a young woman who's getting abused by a partner, she wants to protect herself. How does she use PrEP? Another storyline is a young couple who is in a multi-concurrent partnership relationship. How does she use PrEP? So showing the picture or showing the stories in different ways is really critical, because this reflects the day-to-day lives of the lived realities and experiences of young people, which we have to pay attention to as well. We've done an evaluation of this to see, is this messaging through media actually effective? And it is. It's very effective. We're able to see that post-exposure to the series, we have 3 times, the audiences were 3 times more knowledgeable about not only PrEP, but also where to access it, and some of the questions that they wouldn't necessarily ask another member of their community very confidently. And we got some really interesting anecdotes as well from the young people. I'll just quote 2 very quickly. One said, before seeing the show, PrEP was just something I saw in the books. I didn't know exactly what it was, and I didn't know that it was actually out there. This was a young woman between the ages of 20 to 24. We also had another interesting quote from a male to say, now I have more information about PrEP. It will help me meet someone, and I know what I need to do, and I know what PrEP is, what it is really about. So as we are talking through demand creation, I think there are some principles that we really do want to reinforce in that. One is the clarity of the message. So making sure that the complexity of the messaging is actually given in bite-sized pieces and also in a way that is youth-friendly. If you give very complex information, many of the young people will feel that it's not necessarily something that they can understand. So it's important to break it down in a way that gives them everyday today language that they can use at the health facility. The authenticity of the stories is also very important. As you can see, we try to make it fun, we try to make it creative, but we also recognize that when you talk about PrEP, it's not just about HIV prevention, but also addressing other issues that also are aligned. So in our case, we linked it to gender-based violence issues and how youth were dealing with that. We also linked it with some socioeconomic issues as well. Community engagement is important, so it's not just about sharing the message, but it's also about how you engage with the message at community level. And being brave. I mean, being brave to put out some of those key messages, I think is quite critical. The things that are very taboo to talk about, it's good to see it on the screen. Young people want to see their stories and lives reflected on screen, and that's important because they can resonate with the stories much better. So being authentic as possible is important. And then service and commodities, making sure they are available. I think a frustrating point for a lot of young people is to drive the demand, is to get them empowered, and then there's no output, there's no outlet at the service delivery side. And then most critical is making sure that our healthcare providers are youth-friendly, are able to then liaise. And you see that from the video with Nono. What was really exciting about that was, one, you had an empowered young person able to talk about PrEP, but you also had a healthcare provider who was willing to then explain more and be welcoming and inviting. So some of those things are really critical as we think about demand generation. Thank you.